Cheshire Police have arrested two 15-year-olds on suspicion of murdering a 16-year-old girl at a park in Warrington.
Brianna Ghey was found with stab wounds on a path here at Culture Park.
What they did on that day and leading up to that day was evil.
Two teenagers with a dark fascination for violence and torture.
They appeared to show very little emotion.
To know how scared my usually fearless child must have been when she was alone in that park with someone that she called her friend will haunt me forever.
And everyone here wants to show the support for her and show the respect.
Brianna was funny, she was brave, she was strong. There's a hole in my heart. You always knew when Brianna was around. She was like an absolute ball of energy.
She always liked to come in and have the latest fashions, whether that was handbags or different colour nails, different hair extensions, so she always had like a different look. Her biggest thing that Brianna wanted to achieve in life was to be famous. She loved going onto TikTok. There were numerous conversations we had to have with her because she liked to make TikTok videos in school, whether that was in the school toilets, whether it was in classrooms, but we had to tell her when it wasn't appropriate for her to be doing it in school.
Even though she came across as being such an extroverted, outgoing character, she was also struggling.
Sorry for not opening the videos, but today I did check the back and I did fix it and it looks fine.
She was a really complex child. She had mental health problems, she had an eating disorder and she suffered from anxiety. But despite the issues that she faced, she was a really, really funny student. She was very confident in her own way. She was fearless to be whoever she wanted to be, and she wanted to identify as a female, and she wanted to wear girls' school uniform, and yeah, she just did it. It wasn't a hurdle at all for her. Brianna was really proud of being trans. It inspired other students to be able to come out.
We were at a wedding and they were recording each other, and she flipped the camera onto herself and she says, here I am, the star of the show. And that is exactly Brianna. I'd gone out with Brianna's sister, and Brianna was left in the home alone, and she messaged me to tell me that she was going out. She'd actually got on the bus by herself as well, which she'd never done that before, and with her being a bit anxious, she struggled. I was so happy that she'd done that. Later that day, I was walking the dogs with my partner Wes, and we noticed that there was a very high police presence, and there was like police in our street as well. And and I remember as we were walking past the house, like along the side of the house, I did say, I sort of joked and said that because if Brianna doesn't come home soon, I'll probably have to ring the police, like, because her phone was turned off. We got to the front door and the front door was open, and there was two policemen stood in the house, and they said that they'd found a body. And I remember the first thing that I said to him was that I knew that something was going to happen.
Police and ambulance. I'm in Colchester near Park. Somebody has been attacked. And we've seen some of the attackers run away from the body. She's very hurt.
Okay, take some deep breaths. Do you think she's been hit?
I think she's been attacked.
On the 11th of February 2023, Brianna Ghey's body was found here in Culture's Linear Park in Warrington. She was discovered by dog walkers on this path, about half a mile from the entrance to the park, close to this bench. She had been stabbed 28 times across her head, neck and body.
Police have begun a murder inquiry after the death of a teenage girl in a park.
The family of 16-year-old Brianna Ghey, who was fatally stabbed on Saturday, say that her death was left
in a park near Warrington.
I got a phone call and I was with my son at the time. I remember bending over double. It was like an emotional shock, but it kind of hit me physically as well.
Brianna Ghey was just 16 and stabbed to death.
And her name and image were released almost immediately. And we was getting phone calls, within minutes from members of staff asking what had happened. On the Monday straight away there was film crews outside of the school. It was quite scary for the children. One of their peers had been murdered not far from school. I think the overwhelming reaction was probably anger. Children reacting to that in different ways. Names being written on toilet walls, things being said.
In the days after Brianna's death, vigils were held across the UK in her memory, while celebrities from around the world condemned her murder on social media.
When it all happened, I felt like a knee-jerk reaction to sort of like hide away. Like I even wanted to move house. I just wanted to, I think it was like I was in fight or flight. I didn't want that amount of attention. Then when I saw the vigils and everybody coming together to celebrate Brianna's life, it changed my view on everything. It made me feel like there is good out there. Brianna wanted to be famous, and in a really sad way, like she is now.
At first, police said there was no evidence Brianna's murder was a hate crime. But as public pressure continued to grow, they said they were exploring all avenues, while asking people not to speculate online.
There was lots of kind of insinuation and also accusation about bullying, about hatred towards Brianna. There was never ever any evidence of Brianna being bullied within school. It was also incredibly difficult for her friends and her peers and students in school to read things about her that that weren't true. She didn't live her life as a victim, and it was quite hard to see her portrayed in a way that we know wasn't true to her.
You Eddie?
Yeah.
Eddie, you're locked up suspicion of murder, alright?
I can't explain it.
No, listen. Right, listen.
On the 12th of February 2023, the day after Brianna was killed, 2 teenagers were arrested for her murder. The first, a 15-year-old boy named Eddie Ratcliffe from Wigan. The second,
Scarlett.
15-year-old Scarlett Jenkinson from Warrington. She was someone Brianna considered a friend.
You are under arrest on suspicion of murder. Obviously you are under caution, so anything you say is getting recorded. Okay.
What if me being suspect is because I was the last person seen her, or how come I'm suspect?
Pardon?
How come I'm a suspect?
How come you're a suspect?
Because I'm the last person that's seen her, is it?
I'd never met Scarlett. I'd heard of Scarlett. Brianna had told me about Scarlett. She told me that she'd gone to McDonald's with her after school and these kind of things. At the time it felt like it was the worst possible scenario that could have happened. It was the worst possible person that could have done it to her. I felt that I could trust Scarlett because Brianna clearly trusted her as well.
Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe were close friends who had gone to Culcheth High School in Warrington together until she was transferred to Birchwood Community High School, where she met Brianna.
We were asked by a local high school if we would take Scarlett on a placement due to the fact that she'd brought cannabis edibles into schools. Because she'd come from another school, we couldn't fit all of her options that she'd taken, all of her subjects into the timetable. So she had about two or three hours a week where she was in our inclusion room, where she was with a member of staff to do self-study. Brianna was on a bespoke timetable. She was in part-time and she had all of her lessons one-to-one in the inclusion room. So at some point between November, December, their paths crossed in the inclusion room. In terms of Scarlett, there were no red flags. She came across as very polite, she was very quiet. There was nothing that indicated that this was going to happen.
The BBC has learned that Birchwood Community High School didn't know the full details of the incident involving cannabis edibles. In fact, Scarlett Jenkinson had given them to a younger child who didn't know what they were taking and who then became seriously ill, and the police were called. Culcheth High School told us they are now working with Warrington Council on an independent child safeguarding review.
We took them obviously to interview. Both relatively confident in their account and what they were saying until they realised quite the weight of the evidence that faced them.
After the pair were arrested, their phones were seized. What investigators found on them was chilling. Thousands of WhatsApp messages discussing plans to murder other children.
Let's kill him first. He's easiest this Saturday 1 p.m. I know a hidden spot nobody goes to in Linear Park.
I have a sharp knife.
One day, Scarlett Jenkinson messaged Eddie Ratcliffe to tell him about a girl she had met at her new school.
I'm obsessed over someone I know, but I don't have feelings for them. She's called Brianna. I don't know how to explain.
It wasn't long before Brianna's name appeared on their so-called kill list.
If we can't get him tomorrow, we can kill Brianna. She's back from holiday.
This was quite unusual for the amount of planning that went into it that we had evidence of, and this sort of entire timeline is told via WhatsApp messages.
Meet me at the wooden post in Linear at 12. We'll go over the plan again, and I'll show you where I'm killing her. And then we both walk to the library to meet her. I want to stab her at least once, even if she's dead, just because it's fun.
Whilst it's all been planned via phone, they've also been quite naive around thinking that they pressed delete and it's all gone away, which it surprises me slightly with two very, very intelligent individuals, which they are. Obviously, we've seen the transphobic messages that particularly the boy has used in the case.
How are we going to kill it? I want to see if it'll scream like a man or a girl.
We never built this case around a transgender element. This was about the murder of a young, vulnerable girl. We obviously know that there was that kill list which had 5 people on it. Brianna was one of them. Brianna was the only person on that list who was transgender. This was about murderous intent for somebody. As an investigation team, I think we were all horrified by the level of cruelty. It was a hatred from the off for no real reason. We've never got to the bottom of that. We don't understand why they picked Brianna or any of the other people who appeared on that list.
On the 27th of November 2023, Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe began their trial at Manchester Crown Court. Because of legal restrictions on naming child defendants, at the time they could only be referred to as Girl X and Boy Y.
A court is told that 2 teenagers who are accused of murdering 16-year-old Brianna Ghey showed a preoccupation with violence, torture and death. The accused pair...
We know that the girl involved was allegedly accessing the dark web.
The online activities of the defendants, particularly Girl X, the nature of the content was shocking. Material that involved death, that involved torture, that involved serious violence being inflicted in all different ways and forms.
Prosecutors also told the jury that a few weeks before Brianna's murder, Scarlett Jenkinson had messaged her accomplice, claiming she had already tried to kill Brianna with an overdose of pills.
I remember it vividly. I came home from work and I shouted up to Brianna that I was home, and I went straight into the kitchen to make tea, and all of a sudden I just heard this her wailing. So I ran upstairs and she was just like writhing around in agony, holding her stomach, saying that she felt like she was going to die. I left her to go downstairs to get my phone to check like the symptoms on Google, and the next thing I heard was her being sick. That particular part of the evidence really scared me, because I thought if she'd been successful in that, we would have thought that Brianna had killed herself because of the issues that she had with her mental health at that point.
Through CCTV footage, the jury was shown a detailed timeline of the day the two teenagers successfully carried out their plan to kill Brianna. Brianna got off the bus in Colchester to meet Scarlett Jenkinson, marked here with an X, but following along with her was Eddie Ratcliffe, marked with a Y, who Brianna had never seen before. The three walked together to Colchester Linear Park, Brianna not knowing her friend was luring her to her death.
This was the ultimate betrayal of someone who she considered a friend, who has lured her out of a house. And that's one of the most tragic aspects of this case, is that she thought she had a friend and actually that friend was plotting to kill her.
After the murder, Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe left the park together before they parted ways and he got the bus home. Police later recovered blood-stained clothing and a knife with Brianna's DNA on it from his bedroom. In Scarlett Jenkinson's bedroom, they found notes about serial killers, and then another note, crumpled and handwritten.
Saturday, 11th of February 2023. Victim, Brianna Ghey. Plan. Meet at Wooden Post 1 p.m. Walk down to library, bus stop. Wait until Brianna gets off bus. Then the three of us walk to Linear Park.
That note contained the date, it contained the location, it contained Brianna's details, and it contained a really in-depth plan of how she was going to murder Brianna ultimately. And I think it just shows how premeditated and cold this case was.
In court, the two teenagers both denied murder and blamed each other.
When I was in the trial, I could see the way that they were both behaving, and I could tell that there was no remorse and of regret. Beforehand, I felt like maybe there would be some form of rehabilitation, but clearly it was calculated, and I completely lost any sympathy that I had for them.
I don't for 1 minute think that either of them went along that day thinking that nothing would happen. They knew before they left their houses that they were going to kill Brianna that day.
After just 4 hours of deliberation, the jury found Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe guilty of murder.
To know how scared my usually fearless child must have been when she was alone in that park with someone that she called her friend will haunt me forever.
On the court steps, Esther asked people to consider their families.
Please have some empathy and compassion for the families of the young people convicted of this horrific crime. They too have lost a child, and they must live the rest of their lives knowing what their child has done.
At what age do we stop blaming the parents? These two were clearly of an age where they knew what they were doing. So yeah, I think that we need to focus on them and put the blame on them, not the families. When the verdict came through, I saw how devastated the mum was, one of the mums were, and it kind of made me feel that that's how I felt when I found out the news about Brianna. Because it is true that we've all lost our children.
For Brianna to get justice is so important, but there's also the fact that it's not just one life that's been ruined through these tragic events. It's 3 young lives that have been ruined.
I will now sentence each of you.
On the 2nd of February 2024, the judge, Mrs Justice Yip, sentenced the two teenagers.
Scarlett Jenkinson, for the murder of Brianna Ghey, you will be detained at His Majesty's pleasure. I set the minimum term at 22 years, less the 352 days that you have spent on remand. Eddie Radcliffe, for the murder of Brianna Ghey, you will be detained at His Majesty's pleasure. I set the minimum term at 20 years, less the 352 days that you have spent on remand.
Both were given a life sentence. The judge also lifted the restrictions that normally keep child defendants anonymous.
Scarlett, I have concluded that the primary motivation for Brianna's murder was your deep desire to kill. The messages reveal your fantasies and show your sadistic motives. Brianna's murder was exceptionally brutal. Eddie, although your motives may not have been the same, you knew what Scarlett wanted to do and why. You understood her desire to see Brianna suffer. You actively participated in this brutal murder, knowing the sadistic motives behind it, and you cannot avoid the consequences just by saying you did not have the same desires. I find also that you, Eddie, were motivated in part by hostility towards Brianna because she was transgender. I therefore find that you both took part in a brutal and planned murder.
I felt like it's the right thing for them to be sent to prison for a long time. I have bad days and good days, and I think as time is going on, the good days are outweighing the bad days. I know for a fact I'm never going to get over this, and I think that I think the only way that I can describe it is like there's a hole in my heart.
We planted a cherry blossom tree in Brianna's memory as part of our Remembrance Day for her. The cherry blossom has become kind of real symbol around Brianna. Her favourite colour was pink. She loved everything pink. The time of year that Brianna died, all the cherry blossoms were out, and everywhere you went you just saw pink, and it just made us think about Brianna all the time. After Brianna's death, lots of people wanted to kind of donate money, and Esther was asked if there was a charity, especially in the lead up to the funeral, that money could be donated to, and she was very passionate about bringing mindfulness into schools.
Because I thought that we need this in schools, because I knew how much it had helped me. It had helped like with my mental resilience, and I knew that it was helping me through those initial stages of grief as well. We're hoping to raise enough money to get a teacher in every school in England, and starting with Warrington, trained in mindfulness.
The campaign, called Peace in Mind, has already raised over £50,000. In November 2023, they held a fundraising day on what would have been Brianna's 17th birthday.
You want one of these as well? Everybody's wearing pink, and Birchwood High School, they've bought lots of pink cakes and pink balloons. The show of support has just been absolutely overwhelming, and to feel that the support is still there and it doesn't seem to be going away over time. So yeah, I just want to give everybody a big thank you. We would like to get the school curriculum changed to include a health and wellbeing section so that children can get that mental health support.
We already had lots of issues and problems within schools to do with social media. It's a generation of children that are growing up in a way that no other generation have ever grown up before, and we don't really know what that impact is in the long run. I hope that Brianna's legacy is one of supporting other young people.
In my mind, I sort of thought that there's got to be a balance. Like if something so horrific happens, then maybe something really good could come out of it. And I just feel that Brianna's death can't be for nothing. If we want to avoid things like this from happening in the future, I don't think that we'll get anywhere by just hating each other. I think that we need to show some love and compassion to each other, and that's the only way that we can make society better, and that goes to everybody, not just a handful of people. It goes to absolutely everyone.
Details of support with mental health and self-harm can be found at bbc.co.uk/action line.